Welcome to You're Making It Worse. I'm Elliot Glazer.
I'm Brent Sullivan.
And I'm H. Alan Scott.
We're here. We're queer. Meh. Textual healing.
So last week we talked about how Darren Criss says that he's culturally queer, which, you know, take it or leave it. That's what he said. And then this week we had another headline from a straight actor who from the Red, White, and Royal Blue. Did you guys watch that film at all?
Oh, Alan, I don't think you have to worry about asking me such questions.
I know what it is, though.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big film last year. I interviewed one of the actors from it, not Nicholas, but the guy he was making out with in it.
Ego.
I'm sorry, I did. But I also, in that same interview,
hit, right?
It was a huge hit, massive hit. Uma Thurman played the president. So
it's about the first son and the prime minister's son.
No, the prince of Prince of Wales,
Oh,
basically.
right.
And they fall in love, and you know all of these different things.
Red, white, and royal blue.
Oh, and then they fall into a cake, and it's really steamy, and it was a big I think it's a YA novel, but it was a big sort of like romantic novel, and it got made into the film for Prime, and it was a big hit. And good on everyone for making it a big hit. More queer stories. Like I love that. But this past week, Nicholas gave an interview where he said that this was for British GQ. He was saying that he felt perhaps guilt for playing gay roles as a straight man, and that he's terrified for only being viewed as a cut of beef at a meat market. Now, it's the feeling guilty for playing straight or for playing gay roles as a straight man that I have, like, especially with this particular, there's a trend happening right now where when a straight actor plays in a big queer project like Red, White, and Royal Blue, during the PR process, the interview process for the film, the promotion for the film, especially when the actors are relatively unknown, like these two actors were, the conversation around their sexuality is intentionally muted. It's intentionally vague. It's intentionally like, they might be, wink, wink.
Maybe they kissed. Yeah.
Which, I mean, and then in the film, they very much get hot and heavy gay. And it's these two, presumably, I mean, I don't think his co-star, Taylor Zakar Perez, has officially said one thing one way or the other, but I think it's fair to assume, just go look at his Instagram. And you know that these actors are most likely straight, and yet they're intentionally being coy, and that is a directive from their publicity team. That is a team, that is a PR campaign that is intentional, so that even when journalists ask the questions, they sort of beat around the bush and they talk about representation. And yes, they're being allies. They're talking about the need for representation of more queer stories, and that is a great thing to talk about. However, it also is sort of like, we know you're playing one up on us when you do this. Like, we know, because there is a world in which, you know, the Jonathan Baileys, who are out gay actors, could play straight roles as well. And, or even I mean, there's so many gay actors out there who, like,
I hear Brent typing Jonathan Bailey. Who?
I did. I thought it was the guy that hosted like Cupcake Wars, but it's not.
No, it's not.
That's Jonathan Bennett is who you're thinking of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jonathan Bennett. Jonathan
Mean
Bailey
Girls.
is sort of like the hot gay actor right now. He's in Bridgerton. He's in the new
Fleabag,
Wicked movie.
Right?
No, that's Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott was, that was different actor.
Right.
Different gay actor.
No, that was. I think that's Jonathan Andrew. You're talking about Jonathan Andrew, and I'm speaking about Andrew Scott Jonathan.
No, but there is kind of this like weird dance around these straight actors, these straight male actors who are getting the vast majority of, and I don't think that you need to be gay to play a gay role at all. I don't think that ever needs to be a rule. Like, I don't want to live in a world where Tom Hanks didn't win the Oscar for Philadelphia. Like, I think he deserved that Oscar for Philadelphia. It's a beautiful performance and it deserved that win. But like, also just be upfront. I never not thought that Tom Hanks wasn't straight. Like, Tom Hanks never sat around giving interviews being like, I might be. Like,
Yeah,
like,
right,
Ultimately, the question is like, who cares and does it matter? And if it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But it's a tricky question to answer because I mean, it does matter in a sense because an actor you want, I think it's fair to say one would hope that an actor could bring to their performance some semblance of a lived experience. And when you're queer
Maybe.
or, in some minority where I still remember seeing a poster as a kid for some movie called like The Lopez Family, and Marissa Tomei was in it.
Oh,
And it was like Marissa
Yeah.
Tomei, and I think Angelica Houston. I might be conflating a bunch of stuff, but I do remember a movie like that, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Marissa Tomei is Italian, and that's an odd. I mean, it's obviously has
yeah.
gone out of style to do that. You can't really get away with that anymore. But yet here we are, and maybe it is okay for Nicholas. Gietz. I should read his name, but it should be okay for him to be straight and play Galitzine.
Yes.
Should be fine for him to play gay and be straight, but I don't know. There is something where it's like, but if he doesn't, I don't know. Is that fair? Is it fair? Should somebody, especially an actor, have lived in some semblance a part of the life that they're portraying?
I don't think so. I've never thought that. I've never thought that. Like, I mean, I think in terms of, cultural minorities, like we're talking about,
Of course,
Hispanic
yeah.
Americans, etc. Yes, don't be casting like fucking Natalie Portman to play Selena. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, don't do that. But when it comes to like, and that is a big difference in conversation. There are, of course, cultural and racial minorities, and then there are also minorities in the sense that things that cannot be seen, like religion, like sexual orientation, like political views. There are plenty of Democrats who have been forced to play conservative Republicans in films, and there have been plenty of Jews who have been forced to play the Catholic moms, and like that, and they are able to do that quite successfully. So I don't think you need necessarily a lived experience. And now, if you're trying to tell a really authentic story that's very graphic and intimate and all these different things, sure. But this is a film about the fucking first son and the Prince of Wales fucking. So, like, this is not.
It's got to be white.
Yeah, this is just an example. This is just an example of like the waters have become so muddied by sort of the constant buzz of dissent online that I'm not entirely sure how I feel. And I'm not entirely sure what I've argued on this podcast over the last 6, plus years about whether I do think it's important or whether I don't, or, so I guess at the end of the day, like maybe we've hit a point in the movement where it's just more the coy,
I actually think
media
that's
circus
strategy.
of it all. PR strategy of it all is what's kind of clawing about this.
That's the second conversation. See, to me, it's actually two different conversations. The question is not about whether he can play gay roles. Of course he can, and he can do it very well and successfully. He's done it in a number of projects, as has Darren Criss and many other actors.
But
That
should
said,
he have to?
but should he then use the speculation over, because it's the speculation that
Right.
becomes the commodity, that becomes the commercial itch, that then commodifies queer people in a way that tokenizes us, that makes us sort of like a market to be like, well, they're going to enjoy this tongue-in-cheek moment. They're going to enjoy this game of is he, isn't he? And it's like, we're not little hamsters running around just desperately trying to, I mean, yes, we're trying to find his nudes, but we're not going crazy, trying to figure out who this person is. We know this dude is straight. You can just say he's straight. We don't need all of these fucking things. And
Yeah, I don't think anybody.
that to me is that should be the crux of the conversation. It's not the actors. It has nothing to do with the actor. It's all the PR.
It's like, in his case, it's like, how do you use or not use being gay or not being gay in as strategy for publicizing a role that you're going to be playing that is a gay character? Like, what is everything up until that point? Not are you or aren't you?
And would that film have been as successful as it was if both actors were like, yeah, we're straight. Yeah, we're straight. And and we're hot and we're doing this great movie. So watch it.
Let me draw a pornographic analogy to this. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I just can't do these old school gay porn sites that clearly pay like really conservative, like like straight muscle guys to hook up with each other, because it's so disingenuous. I can't do it anymore. But that was what I was weaned on in college.
Yeah.
But these days it's
And
just
it's
so
still the
artificial
corner
and
of the
absurd
market. It's
that
the
I just can't
cornerstone
do
of the
it.
marketplace for that kind of, entertainment.
What'd you say about entertainment? I cut out for a second.
Yeah, I said that's still the cornerstone of the market for that entertainment. Like that still is the number one search on all of the websites,
It is?
Yeah, I mean, that's the market. That's
Gay
sort
for
of like,
pay, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
Elliot wouldn't know. He has his flash drive with 6 videos that he doesn't spend any other time Googling or anything like that. He has no idea that there's porn on the internet besides 6 videos on a flash drive that he lost once, but he got it back.
How'd you get it back?
I found it.
Didn't
You
you
lost it on a plane?
Elliot, didn't you lose your hard drive on a plane and you somehow got it back? Or you lost your computer on a plane?
You remember better than I do.
Boy, Jesus.
I don't remember.
No, I definitely remember.
I don't remember.
You lost something huge on a plane,
Okay.
but you did get it back.
Oh yes, that's right. A laptop. Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna say right now, especially considering our conversation with our guest today, if I die and I have my ashes, Elliot cannot be in charge of my ashes.
No, I'm not kidding. I've said this before. I'll say it again, and you can add this to the podcast if you want, Alan. If I die on a Friday,
thank you, Brent.
If I die on a Friday, by Monday, Elliot will be like, "Who was that Trent Bullivant again?" Like, I swear to God, he will have already forgotten who I was, what I texted about.
No.
What
he
I
will,
did.
He will send us a group message.
It's all just like, oh, all right, whatever. Trent Bullivant, I like that guy. He was a good guy.
Not even joking.
So our guests today are Par Parekh and Ali Hart. Now together they produced and directed a really sweet documentary for Independent Lens called Sister Una Lived a Good Death. The documentary follows a very atypical nun, Sister Una, who worked in a particularly progressive Encino convent. She drank, she smoked, and she cared a lot about social justice. So thank you so much for joining us, guys. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. And thanks for those kind words and for watching the movie.
Oh my God, it was really fantastic. I've watched a lot. When it comes to care before death, I think I've watched them all. As my co-hosts will attest to, I certainly enjoy the darker side of videos. But this one was, that is my that is my niche. But this one was so thoughtful and insightful and inspiring. So I guess let's start at the very beginning. How did you guys meet this really cool nun? And let me know if I did a good job explaining her. Describing her in the run up.
Par, you should.
Yeah,
Are you the story?
Yeah, sure. I think that was a fabulous intro of her. She was also sassy and wisecracking, but just to give us an entire picture of her, like we all are. And Ali and I had met recently before we met Sister Una, and I had made a short film about my time in LA where I came to LA, I looked like this, and everyone thought I was a guru. So I made a little short about that called The Happy. And a friend of mine on it, Kelsey, who's in the movie, would say, I got to go talk to my dying friend nun and help her plan her funeral. And that sentence just didn't compute for me. I was just kind of like, what's a dying nun for? Because I was raised Hindu. I didn't know what a nun was. I just knew them from the movies. Met Sister Una, and Ali and I had been wanting to make a project together. And it was just one of those things where kismet. And it was so easy to fall in love with her, as you can tell. Like we had so much in common right from the start, and there was just like that gallows humor and acceptance of people. One
of the things that's really obvious right off the bat is that she has an atypical approach to Catholicism. She is officially a nun, correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she is a nun, and like you guys have a quick interview with what is clearly a queer kid who was talking about his experiences with Sister Una, and he just made it clear that like she knew Sister Una, this kid says, knew that I was different from the beginning, and she always made me feel accepted. no matter what, accepted and loved, and that's definitely a consistent theme from her. So is that something that kind of really drew you to her as well?
Allie?
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
I want to space it out here so people know voices.
yeah, so I think, Par was raised Hindu, I was raised Jewish. We both really didn't have a lot of experiences with Catholic nuns, and we had ideas of what they were like. And she really just blew us away in terms of like, she was like, I still couldn't believe she was a nun, like even after like 9 months of being with her, it's just like not what I was thinking. And she just seemed like she was just so open-minded and so like loving. And so, yeah, that's definitely what drew us in, because we're just like, she's clearly like the special person. And the more time we spent with her, the more we realized like how many people felt that way about her, or felt like very connected to her for helping them through a hard time, or just always being there for them. And that was just sort of like her magic.
Yeah. And how did you two, well, first off, figure out, because I mean, when you're working on a documentary film, you kind of just follow it wherever the story takes you, but you also have your own different visions and also your own different outlooks on sort of like how to even probably portray this woman. And so how did the two of you come to figure out the narrative for how the film would go and like what direction you would take?
Well, I think it was a nice collaborative process, but there was a producer director split, but it was also the love that was put. We kind of did it very untraditionally. You don't make a movie like this and in a traditional manner. We kind of thought we were making a short at first. We're going to make a short film about Sister Una for a community. Then you spend more time with her and you're like, oh, she's just a really special woman. And honestly, for me, when you get that feeling, when something inside you changes, you kind of say you're kind of drawn to it. And Sister Una did that for us. I was thinking a lot about death and dying in that moment. And suddenly, she's so irreverent and a slap in the face of what we think of Catholicism. And it made me question my prejudices too. It's like, what are my prejudices against, Catholic nuns just from movie representations? Like, oh, the fact that I'm thinking about this and I love hanging out with her made it very clear. Now, I'll tell you this, we knew she was going to die at the very beginning. That was very clear. So there was a bit of narrative structure built in there, but we didn't know how long. Thank goodness we had her for 9 months, because we really got to fall in love with her even more, forge a really strong relationship with her. And I think that intimacy comes from real intimacy, real time we shared with her when she was up, when she was down, the jokes. And I think that led us that feeling. And I think Ali and I and our editor, Anne, were really clear about letting Sister Una kind of guide the movie in a lot of ways. Like her spirit, it became almost a spiritual endeavor in the making of it. Because we're honoring this woman who is so magical and powerful, but we are also bringing our attitudes and angles to it. And how they mix up is very special. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, does it feel like you're hanging out with Sister Una? That's a feeling when we both had done that. So that was the way,
Just to give maybe the listeners a little bit more background, this is my fault. So the documentary evolves around Sister Una's diagnosis with terminal cancer and how she chooses to spend what is essentially her final year. And in her case, it's, living her best life as opposed to sitting and waiting for death. And what were there any moments that like surprised you with, the bravery that she had and sort of, going out there and like, living the way she wanted to live despite having sort of this looming, deadline kind of hanging over her?
And to add on to Brent's question too, what were some of the things, for people who haven't watched the film, what were some of the things that she did to live her best life?
I'm trying to think of things that surprised me, but, I mean, she basically just wanted to spend time with her friends, and she travels to Oregon, and she like karaoke's, and it's just sort of like she goes and has a whiskey with her palliative care doctor. She's just doing all the things she can do while she has the energy to do them. I'm trying to think of surprises right now. I mean,
Yeah, there was a moment when she is karaoke singing a song from Sister Act. I do know that. One of the
Just to give you an
Which-
idea of how like hilarious she was. She was so
I
full
mean-
of self-irony, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you're gonna do a movie about a nun, you gotta have a Whoopi Goldberg
Of
Sister
course,
Act
I was going to
moment.
say
in it.
that's where I
She-
get
she-
all my Catholic iconography from.
Yeah. She goes
Yeah.
she goes fishing as well. For some reason, fishing is like really important to her. She sees some old, really close friends of hers from like a summer camp when she was much younger. This is a really close knit group.
Had you
So
guys?
so go ahead.
worked in-
Wait, go ahead, Par. Were you
Oh,
going to say
sorry.
something, Par?
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, Par.
No, it's one of those things. I think the things that surprised me were things that surprised me about anybody when you kind of how she revealed herself and her level of vulnerability, whilst also being you can tell she's very performative. She's very funny. She knows how to. She's a great raconteuse. She tells a great story. All those things. You're like, oh, but then she's able to get very vulnerable at the same time. And I was very impressed by her ability to articulate the saying no, which is very being like, sometimes friends are coming up to me and I need to take care of me. And that was very surprising because she's so strong and there's a level of vulnerability she kind of went to, which opened up my heart too,
For sure, yeah. There's a moment sort of later on in the documentary when she's talking about how she's like rolling her eyes and she's like, oh, I have certain friends that just keep being like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And she's like, it's almost annoying. It's like they're projecting, they're putting too much onto me. This is my death. This is my life. And like my life, my death. And I want to, she recounts, if you don't mind me mentioning this, she recounts one of her friends saying, I want to cradle you while you die. And she's like, what are you talking about? Why would I want that? Go ahead.
No, it's that kind of like refreshing honesty. It's like you always want to match the story with the storyteller, and she's just the best storyteller to bring us into this very difficult topic that we just don't talk about in Western culture, which is death and dying and mourning and grief. We kind of push it away for as long as possible, and because she's so funny and so blunt and real about it, like it makes the medicine go down so much easier.
I was actually going to bring that. I was going to bring up.
Wait. Elliot had something he wanted to ask before.
Oh, I just want to ask how that changed the way you thought about end of life. I mean, it's obviously the crux of the movie, but it's so hard to talk about and deal with. So I wonder how it changed it for you on a personal level.
I mean,
Allie, do you want to start that off?
I was thinking that when I was thinking about the surprise, Par nailed what was coming into my brain was like that moment of when she went from performative to like very vulnerable and said that, about her friend. And that to me really, I'm like, oh, now I have a better understanding of how to approach somebody who's in her situation, because like they know you're sad. They don't need to watch you be sad around them, and they don't want to spend that time being sad. They want to like live their lives and have joy. And so it has really changed the way that I think about approaching people in that situation and being like, like, what do you need from me? Or like, what can we do together? That's like what do you need? And instead of just being like, I'm so sad for you and I really love you. Like,
right. Not shouldering that burden. Making her shoulder that burden.
What about you, Par?
It's made me go deeper into thinking about death in my everyday life. I'm Indian American, and in Indian culture, death is very present, but I was raised very American. So there was this kind of divide of, well, what does one do with it? And then talking to Sister Una and realizing, that this very American way of keeping it in resonated with other ways as a kid, that I was like keeping things, being an artist or being a weirdo, and then just like being like, and just that liberating feeling you feel when you kind of are like, oh, this is who I am. That feeling I started feeling when I started thinking about death and dying. I go, there's this guy from like 50 years ago, Ernest Becker, who wrote a book about like denial of death. It kind of made the rounds as a big deal in that essay. And he was just talking about like, we're numbing ourselves with like entertainment and everything, and not actually engaging with the big idea, which is just thinking about death, which makes you then really make these changes in life. Like for me, and then that kind of intellectual idea, Sister Una made that really real for me. Like I think about it. I think about my nephews and nieces. I think about my parents. It makes me love better. It makes me realize through Sister Una's like way of doing things, like live every day, not if it's your last, but kind of as if it's your first, with this curiosity and funness. So it really changed my life in a very powerful way.
I do want to throw this out. So this is, so I think as someone who's definitely preoccupied with death my whole life, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I would do if I was under the similar circumstances as Sister Una. What would I do if I was diagnosed with a terminal illness? And I bounce between two things. One is which I know historically in my life, when I'm extraordinarily stressed, I actually become extra sober. I don't listen to music. I don't drink. I don't do anything else. I just become extremely present, and it sucks. But I just feel this overwhelming compulsion not to water anything down. On the other side, there's a part of me that if I was diagnosed with some horrible cancer, I would just want to smoke meth for like the last 6 months of my life. Just have, because you don't have to worry about the addiction, you don't have to worry about the money, you don't have to worry about losing not being able to pay your rent.
The meth money.
Yes, because you take your life savings and you just buy
too
meth.
much about that.
Oh my god.
But I have had that thought where I'm like, why not spend the last 6 months in a complete state of bliss?
I mean, I think for Brent, for what I get what Brent's saying, maybe not to the extreme of Brent's saying, but I get what Brent's saying in that I mean, these guys know this, but you two don't, I had cancer. And when I had cancer, I used to think that I was like, okay with that. Like I was okay with death. I was like, death's a reality. And then when I got cancer, I was like, I kind of suddenly became afraid of death. I kind of suddenly became like, oh, fuck, now this is way too real. Like this is, I mean, my cancer was not as serious enough where I was even concerned with dying, but it still got that in my head, that thinking of like, oh, this could happen. This is real. I'm not going to last forever. And it got me to a place where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on joy. I'm going to make sure that like, if I know I'm dying, I'm going to smoke for the rest. I'm going to enjoy the cigarettes that I know that I love so much, even though I don't smoke anymore. But as soon as I get that diagnosis, I'm smoking. And I also know that like, I'm going to have a fun funeral. I'm going to put my ashes in an Etch-a-Sketch and give it out to friends on keychains. You know what I mean? Like, that's like my goal in life.
That's
and so
amazing.
Right? It like, so did that sort of reevaluate even your own plans, your own sort of like life plans in the end, and sort of how you thought about the realistic thoughts, not just like what she did for you, but your own realistic thoughts about your own death? Did that ever change?
Allie?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I want my funeral to be fun. I don't want it to be like a sad affair. And I like how people are starting to reframe.
Brent, they're throwing out meth, throwing out
Yeah.
dollar bills, meth, just giving everybody meth.
Look, we say that for one more time,
I'm
we're
not
going to get
buying meth.
demonetized. So let's stop saying meth.
I'm not buying meth unless I have terminal cancer. Continue, Allie. Go ahead.
And then it'll just come to you. You probably won't need to buy it anyway.
I think so. I think you're right.
Just like the reframe, people use celebration of life now instead of saying funeral, so that's supposed to be a more positive thing. Like just those simple reframes, I think, are really important. You know, and I have really thought about like, I don't think I want to be buried. I want to be cremated and maybe done into like a, you know, some sort of compost, some cool thing where I become a tree.
Maybe put into a necklace.
Like, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. That just gets pretty good though. I might steal that.
Yeah. They make these mushroom things where you kind of get eaten by mushrooms and then turn into a tree. You know, there's all sorts of there are different ways to do it now. Well, you know, I'll tell you, this is what I learned is it kind of helped me think about my, you know, anxiety and the way I kind of consider my life. It's just like, I don't need to overthink it now. I know I want fun. I want chocolate chip cookies. I want dancing in the street. I want good music. That's what I know. But in the moment, I have to be true to what I'm feeling then. So there's less resistance. And the big thing, I mean, this was the big thing that came from me was how my community, my family, my loved ones, I realized so many people push it away for so long that you're actually hurting others in some ways.
Yes, I feel like I've seen that from friends whose parents have passed away.
Yeah.
With one friend in particular, his mom passed away, and I think that there is a sense of burden when loose ends aren't tied up, and it does become even more than one might be able to handle. And it's not like one's fault, but it is the way that things can go.
Yeah. Right.
So
and one other
another
to that for a second.
go ahead, Allie.
Just like the main thing that I realized from what Una planning her own funeral was doing for other people was giving people like the tools while they're grieving her to plan something that she really wanted, and that is so important for everyone to write down what they would want, and also, you know, have an advanced care directive, like have all those things in order so that people
Yeah.
know what to do, and
Yeah.
like they're not put in a position where like, you know, on like a like less intense level, like trying to figure out what you want for your funeral, or like in a more intense level,
Right.
like being in a hospital
No.
with pulling the plug or not, and what
Yeah.
would that person want? I don't know.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
the best thing we can do
Right.
for our people we love is give them like those, like all that
Giving
information of what we
extra
want.
closure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's I think there's it goes hand in hand with kind of why we don't talk about it so much when in America, because we kind of went into like almost against the community aspect of growing up and went to the individualistic, like nuclear family. And in a lot of ways, death is a community experience. It touches so many people's lives, though it's intensely personal. So there's something about like considering how it's going to affect other people before you actually pass, which is really helpful too.
So
Mhm.
why do you? That's one consistent thing that Sister Una brings up very early in the documentary, which is, you know, our culture is extraordinarily uncomfortable in talking about and addressing death. And why do you think that is? And I have my own theory, but it's a little controversial, so I want to let you guys go first.
Well, there are a lot of theories, but I think what you can an anti-capitalist would say it's because of the corporations and our greed that we're just focused on things. I think a historian would say we're based on a puritanical culture, which is fear of death. There are many reasons that I think it comes to the heart of it, but one of them I think is our lack of community, and we just like that there's such an intense feeling that comes with thinking about death and dying, and we're not, and I think part of it is the visuals of it, right? Everything is through TV or through screens and something like that. So to actually see a body and to feel mourning in a ritualistic manner, like creates these memories of it in a lot of ways that form you when you're a kid. And I think we've lost real memories of it as a society because it's just not talked about. It's not seen. That's kind of one of my theories about it anyway. Allie,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, just you made me just think that like Una would talk about death as a sacred moment and how she was around so many other nuns who passed. Like they would be, you know, they clean their bodies when they die, and like they sort of are there for that. And she would say it was like an honor to be around people who died. And I'd never really thought about that. And I've heard other people who've been caretaking end of life recently who talk about it like that. And it's really, that's changed the way I think about it, because I do think we see it as like someone just, it's like there's no like ceremony around it. It just seems like someone's dead, okay, like in movies and TV, and it's not we don't see it as like a sacred thing, but it, like I'm starting to see it differently now from this film.
Yeah. You know, I guess it's not really a full-fledged theory that I had, but I guess the comment that I was going to make was that I'm taken aback for how religious our society is, generally speaking, broadly speaking.
That too. Yeah.
And the fact that people continue to be so uncomfortable with death, which I think is perfectly reasonable, but there's a part of me that thinks it's because obviously of the unknown, and that also, you know, we're raised and we grow up believing certain things. Regardless of whatever your religious backgrounds are. But then when push comes to shove and, you know, you get a little bit closer to this, you know, this date, you know, I think everyone starts to say, well, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I don't know what's coming. And I think that's ultimately is despite how religious we are, that is, I think, what kind of is the synthesis behind all of our discomfort.
You know, there's some theories about like there's this thing called Pascal's paradox, I think it's called, where it's like if, you know, Pascal was a fierce atheist and on his deathbed, and a Catholic dude, you know, priest comes up and says, just say these sacraments. If you say them, you go to heaven. If you don't, and you don't believe it anyway, so what's the worst that can happen? So it becomes this intellectual debate for him. And I think it gets to the heart of like is just fear, right? It's just it's a deep fear of the unknown. And there's this Ali Zerbi mentioned this guy. I keep thinking about him so much. This Roman philosopher Seneca, who is this also physician. He goes, "You don't die because you're sick. You're gonna die because you're alive." And I think the fear. I think part of it is like we've become so disconnected to the natural world and just the natural rhythms of it. So it becomes so much fear around it. I don't know. And that gets a little. It's so funny watching the movie now 100 times with people. It becomes almost, and now going and experiencing other people's deaths after it, it becomes a psychedelic experience or spiritual experience, whatever you call it, to be around someone's death. You know, it really
Mhm.
changes you like a trip would in some ways, where I don't know how to describe it. And then watching this movie over and again and feeling community grief and people sharing these stories about it, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
just talking about it starts changing your mind and starts changing the way you think. You know, it's like it's an easy way to get to like deep philosophy, just like by considering it. You know?
Totally. I mean, there's something about I just want to say one thing to
please.
that. Like I remember when I was going through chemo, and I was also talking to my rabbi and talking about the whole thing of like afterlife, and there was someone in chemo that was a mom who said she was only going through chemo so that she could see her daughter graduate from college, and then she was just she knew she was dying. And we were talking about sort of death and the afterlife and all these things, and I was saying how much that woman impacted me, sitting next to her for those many months, and sort of just really just bitching with her. Like we would just have great days where we would just talk about all kinds of crazy shit. But I also left knowing she was going to die, and I probably wouldn't know. All these things. And my rabbi said that the afterlife lives on in the memories that you have with the person. That's the afterlife. That's heaven, is those memories and those things that you love and cherish. And so like that was so like an epiphany to me, that I was like, well, who cares about heaven or hell or any of that shit? The good things are all up in my head while I'm alive, so I might as well enjoy that, you know?
And
I know about that because you guys know that I'm a big Teresa Caputo fan, and I'm pretty sure the way she sees the afterlife is pretty she's just hanging out in rooms and stuff. And
I'm sure she's right, and I'm sure she's
totally.
right.
Well, that was what we were trying to get with you absolutely nailed kind of the purpose of the visuals of the animation, was that like we live on the afterlife, what we call the universe, was just living on in the memories and the stories that kind of go on. That's the afterlife, for lack of a better word, you know? And it's just so funny. I see it in strange ways as someone who was raised Hindu, became a fierce atheist, and then I'm just like, it doesn't really matter either way, just be kind in this world, you know? But starting to see patterns in things that I say or do based on a grandfather that I have never met, of a memory that my father planted in my brain, that his father planted in his brain. You're like, oh, you do live on in this way. You know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I remember there was this, I heard some short story, I think on a podcast once, and the concept was when you die, you only go to heaven after the final person on earth has forgotten you. So between life and heaven is you sit in this room and you're waiting to be quote unquote forgotten. And of course,
I think that's also in Coco too, the movie Coco.
Yeah, I actually think it's a consistent belief.
It's like the Bardot.
Yeah. Let me also throw this out real quick because this is one of my favorite memories. I was in middle school and I was having dinner with my family, and my dad happened to mention, he said, when I die, I don't know how this came up, but it just came up at dinner. He said, when I die, I don't want any pain pills because it's my death and I want to feel it. And I remember being like, I'm in middle school. Would you chill out? Good Lord.
Hard to say to it.
Come on.
That gives me chills.
My dad has unique philosophies that I am always very impressed by, but to each their own. Well, Par and
the
Allie,
conversation end there though? Is that where the conversation?
I don't remember where it went from there. I think I probably just slunk up to my room.
Let me just add before we go if those who do not watch our podcast on YouTube, if they don't, they should, because Par, your beard is an incredible sight, and the fact that you groom it with your hand I love it. I could watch it all day. I love it.
It's very soothing. Talk about the afterlife. I'm going to live in your beard.
I'm living in the afterlife right now, guys. Every day.
I love it.
You look fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm just a good-looking crew right here. What can I say?
Of course. Well, where can people see the film, find out more information about the film, and also follow both of you on social media and the film?
Well, the film is currently available for rent or purchase on Prime Video, Apple, TV and Comcast Xfinity, and then also through PBS Passport if people have that.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Watch it on PBS. And then the
And
handle
then
for
we're
the
hoping
movie.
to take it on the road. Oh yeah, go on.
The handle for the movie is Sister Una Movie on Instagram. We don't really use Twitter anymore.
Awesome.
And Facebook. And yeah,
awesome. That's
and
great.
if you go to the website sisteruna.com and put your name in the newsletter, we're hoping to. It's been really beautiful to take the movie on the road and to see it with a group of people. People start sharing in like a really powerful way. It's amazing as opposed to watching it at home. So you can sign up to see where we're going to take the movie around in the coming months.
Great.
That's great. Awesome.
Well, thank you both
so much, guys.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
And another thing.
Well, Brent, you had this one point to talk about in this segment for a long time about baby pictures on dating apps, but I expanded it into a larger 2024 updated list of potential red flags that we see on dating apps. Now, Alan, of course, is not on them. I recently got rid of the one that I was on, and then I re-downloaded it briefly.
Because you traveling.
Yeah,
yeah.
You're on the road.
But I can't. I gave up. I gave up because of one red flag, and it's not. Sorry, it's not one red flag. It's one consistent mono.
Yeah.
Trope.
Term. Yeah.
A trope, I guess.
Wait, what is it?
It's got gay men talking about pineapples on pizza and
Right.
wanting to. The only thing I see on.
Wait.
Yes.
Wait. Stop. Hold the podcast.
I will.
You deleted a dating app because people decided to talk or put into it that they enjoy pineapple on pizza.
I'm telling you that I have dozens and dozens of profiles. I've come across dozens and dozens. Let me finish.
The most Jewish thing you've ever done.
No, it's not about the pineapples on pizza.
Elliot.
It's not about the food.
It's about the groupthink mentality
it's about
that
the
you find.
groupthink. And I could also replace pineapples on pizza with ice cream, saying I know ice cream or tacos, cuddles. There's these like a word bank or like a handful of 5 or 6 examples.
Yeah.
But the one that's the most mind-numbing to me is adult men in their late 30s, some in their 40s, saying, I want to debate you on whether pineapple belongs on pizza. And I want to be like, grow up.
I certainly agree with it. As someone who still uses the apps, this is a Hinge phenomenon, by the way, because Hinge gives you certain prompts. And
is that a prompt from Hinge?
It's a the prompt is something like, "Oh, let's debate this." Debate me on, and then people will.
Why do you
it's
think
not
people
like
go to pineapple?
But...
Like what
Alan,
is it about?
I don't know. This is why I deleted the app.
Now this is why you're telling me it's not about the pineapple, but you've already stretched your face 3 times every time I've said pineapple. It's about the pineapple.
No, it's about like Brent said, the group think. I can't believe that adult men who have had to face some adversity as a gay person in some way or another are all like, well, let's talk about pineapple.
Isn't pineapple supposed to make your cum taste something?
No, I think
don't
that's
care.
like blueberries or something. So here's this is my thing that's been disturbing me. I found it weird from the very beginning of using these apps, and I recently found someone who had 2 examples of this. People that post their baby pictures on their dating profiles. I find this to be another Hinge phenomenon for whatever reason. I see it much, much less commonly on Tinder, and definitely not on Grindr, which is good. It's a Hinge phenomenon, and there was a guy recently, he had 6 pictures. 2 of the 6 were baby pictures.
But why do you think that? Like, I don't have an answer for you, but
I don't know, and I find it to be such a bizarre look. I'm not saying I thumb through Hinge profiles with a rock hard dick or anything, but you are still gauging your level of attraction to people. That is the inherent nature of these profiles.
Yeah.
And then you're thumbing through and you see this fucking 6-year-old. You're like, what? Like, look, don't get me wrong. When you get to know someone well enough, whether they're your friend or a partner, and you see their baby pictures, it's a totally different experience because you're like, oh, I know what this person is like, and they look so cute when they're kids, and this is so adorable, and they're precocious, whatever. Elliot sends us constant videos of him when he was a precocious 8 to 12-year-old, and it's adorable
Wait,
because
what's
you
wrong with
know you're.
that?
Nothing wrong with that.
I'm literally saying it's
Oh, oh, oh.
adorable because it's it's
Yeah.
sweet, and you know Elliot, and you can see remnants of like what he would become, seeds of what he would become, and his behavior when he was 10,
Yeah.
all these things. You don't do it with a stranger. You don't show
This
Yeah.
a stranger
This
a
speaks
picture
to my point, though. It's a bizarre, overarching, all-consuming juvenile mentality that makes it's not just unsexy. It makes no sense to me to talk
Well, I
about
can
to say
add-
like ice cream, and I just hear a child's voice saying pineapples on pizza, ice cream.
Well,
Like, I'm
okay,
like,
so I can add to that in that, like, even though I'm not on any of these apps, I can say that as a Disney person, the Disney pictures bother me.
yes,
That I find it to be. I mean, one.
one
Okay.
I can be okay with.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
went to Disney, great.
Yes,
3,
it's too much.
4.
It's too much. I mean, I don't even post pictures of myself at Disney half the time. Like I just don't do
No.
that. But I find it. But in the along the juvenile lines, I do think that there is something. There is this sort of like perpetual trapped in early 20s mentality that we all kind of suffer from sometimes in the way that we dress and act and live, especially if we're still single and living in the things, in doing the things, and we're living in big cities that perpetuate this idea of forever youth and always being youthful, and that is the prize that we always must hold on to as tightly as possible, which is bullshit. And so by manifest of that, because you're on a dating app looking to make connections with other people, and the group think is be youthful, be youthful, be youthful, stay young, stay hip, stay whatever. Then you do these things, you post these pictures, you talk about the fucking pineapple, you do the Disneyland thing.
I don't think it's the same thing.
In an effort to be like, I'm fun and silly and crazy, and look at this. I'm just relaxed.
I want to have as much empathy as you do. I'm
not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying this is the rationale. I think it's still crazy.
I want to have empathy for any form of it, though, but I it's not even that. It's just so mundane. It's such a nothing. These are like nothing things to talk about. And I've written down like saying pineapples on pizza, saying you're sarcastic, talking about tacos, pizzas, or ice creams, talking about naps or cuddles. Like, there's a guy an ex of an ex. I came across on this app, and this, I swear to God, this was the reason I was like, I'm done. I'm literally deleting it. Was because this man is a doctor. He's in his early 40s. He is a doctor, a cardiologist, and he wrote, "What's your favorite vegetable as a side? I'll go first. Mine's not broccoli."
What is his favorite vegetable then? I don't know.
Well, it's not broccoli, that's for sure.
I feel like broccoli's the go-to vegetable.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. But I also.
What's your favorite vegetable? I'll tell you what, not broccoli. I'm like, are
okay,
you 10?
Cabbage.
Who cares?
Like cabbage.
Yeah,
Chickpeas. Like who cares?
But also too, I mean, I don't know. I understand that I'm coming at it from the gaze of someone who doesn't have to live in that world, so I get that. Like, I fully understand. I have not been, I'll say, our age and experience this part of it. But I will also say that there is a level of we know how to present ourselves in a certain way that offers a narrative and perspective because of what we as comedians are able to then sell ourselves in a way that is different than others, and we should give others the benefit of the doubt for the person. Just wait a second, Elliot. You need to don't think about the pineapple. What I'm saying is the cardiologist has cardiology to worry about. Let him just say the fucking cute little thing on his fucking dating profile app shit thing while he goes and saves lives, and he's just trying to be a normal human, and that is really his only way of doing it because he's probably just a fucking boring doctor.
Well, here's a funny footnote is that a friend of mine went out with him after they met on Hinge, and the first thing he said to my friend as he drove up was, what's wrong with your car? what was wrong with his car was that it was a Saab, a hand-me-down
Wait,
that was a
The
Saab.
doctor said that to him?
The doctor said to my friend, "What's wrong with your car?" And then during the date, my friend asked him, "So what kind of guys are you usually into?" And he said, "Light and muscular."
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
So-
well,
No,
doctor's
no
a monster.
thanks.
The doctor's a monster. Sorry.
Yeah, but I don't. But I'm with you though. I understand that we are three acerbic. We're verbose. We do comedy and writing. Like we all do
And
that
in
for a
text,
living.
we come out, like our personalities come out in the things we
I
write.
totally agree, and I
Yes.
want to hold space for that. What I'm saying is, it's not so much a red flag for me when somebody says it. I can't believe I see en masse anybody having thoughts about pineapples on pizza.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
En masse.
I'll take a harder line in the sand. No more baby pictures on your dating profile. How about that?
That's true. That is just creepy.
Especially if you as a baby eating pineapple on pizza.
Well, that's dangerous for a baby.
True.
They could choke.
What would your aunt say? Brent, what would your Aunt Ramona say about something she heard on today's show?
If I ever visit your grave, Brent, I'll bring you something. It's not gonna be flowers. It'll be tap shoes. I'll be dancing.
My Aunt Joanne would say, well, I think you could tell Par and Allie about Shiva. Shiva's pretty thoughtful for post-death. Jewish.
That's right. That's very true.
Sid Shiva.
Serve,
It's a very-
is it serve Shiva? Is that
Sid
what-
Shiva.
Sit Shiva. There you go.
Serve Shiva.
I don't know.
You're serving Shiva, bitch. How
What about
Aunt Anne?
Aunt Anne would say, I will always tell you I'm straight, but never narrow. I've been on Weight Watchers for years.
Get her some Ozempic.
No, she won't do that. She's too afraid of needles.
It would be hard to give yourself a shot. I do think that would be tough.
No, it's easy.
I
It's
don't
so
do it all
easy.
the time.
I do it all the
Yeah,
time in
well.
the stomach. It's the easiest shot too. It's not like a normal shot. It's literally meant
It's
that
like
you
an
can easily
EpiPen
do it at
thing.
home. It's like an EpiPen. It's
I
really
laugh
easy.
as though it wouldn't, as though it'd
have
be easy for
always-
me. I would pass out too, I think.
There is something about the EpiPen that seems so satisfying. You just
Yeah.
all you got to do is
I mean,
find a leg
Stab
and you
it.
go,
Yeah, you
Like,
don't
it's
do
just-
that with the Ozempic. I mean, you actually just put it on your
No, I
stomach
know.
and you know
Does
it
it
goes
hurt?
in. No, not at all. No.
Does it pinch?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a pinch, but it's fine. Just look at my
Alright.
face. Look how skinny I am. It's perfect. I love it.
You look fantastic as always.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, bye. Watch us on YouTube.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.